Canva just made Cavalry free, completely free, which is one of the most powerful motion design apps out there. But what features do you get? And will this make Cavalry the best option for motion designers right now? Last week, Cavalry announced that Pro was going free, and it's already live on their new website, cavalry.studio. I've gone through every single feature that used to be behind the Pro paywall, but now are free, and picked out the most important ones for you to learn, and grouped them into 10 categories, starting with Forge Dynamics. This is one of the most impressive features because it's a 2D physics engine that allows you to do stuff like this in Cavalry. Put simply, it makes your shapes in your scene able to fall, collide, be affected by force fields and more natively inside of Cavalry. Next up, we have some effects. There are 3 that are worth highlighting. First off, background blur. Sounds simple, but now free users can finally create this frosted glass effect that you've probably seen before. Furthermore, we also have glow, which will allow you, to add glow to your motion design. And lastly, we have a really interesting one, the spherize filter. What this will allow you to do is to take an image like this of the moon and wrap it around a sphere. Really cool if you're into astronomy. What's incredible is that Cavalry is still a 2D software, but manages to create a really convincing 3D effect. Now, let's take a look at 2 behaviors that affects shapes in a fun way, starting with chop path. This will allow you to, for example, chop a text shape into pieces. Just take a look at this animation on Scenery by Savio Palmerson. Along with this, we also have the squash and stretch behavior, which, it squashes and stretches objects and allows you to add this bulge to shapes, sort of mimicking frame-by-frame animation. With the Pro features all going free, we're also getting some new shapes, and even custom shapes, which I'll talk about shortly. First, let's take a look at a feature that opens up for a lot of opportunities, Layout Group. This is such a good one because what it does is that it lets you arrange shapes in a group where one affects the other, like in this simple example animation in the docs. This is of course a very simplified version of what you can actually do with it. With this, you can create systems for animations with responsive UI layouts. However, this feature is about how you position shapes. An actual shape you get access to now for free is the isoline shape, which turns images or other shapes into contours. Speaking of shapes, the next feature, which is definitely something that feels pro, allows you to create shapes using code, more specifically JavaScript. This coding language can be used on multiple layers like JavaScript utility, deformer, and shapes. Being able to create custom shapes with code is extremely powerful, as you can see on these few examples. While you might think we've covered most of it now, some of the most powerful Pro features are still waiting in the remaining 5 categories. The next features we're going to look at is all about organization, and before you leave from boredom, this might be the most universally important one because it will make your projects way more manageable. As free users, we finally have access to components. This allows you to pack multiple layers into one adjustable component. The attributes from these layers can then be promoted to the component, as the doc says. This way, we suddenly have this one shape with a custom user interface. And just imagine how this can be used to create templates or combinations of layers you often use. Really a powerful one, and it goes hand in hand with the control center, which we will look at in the end of the video. Before moving on to some of my absolute favorites, feel free to support me by subscribing or buying me a coffee through the link below. Recently, I got my first supporter that I don't know, and if you're watching, thank you so much. The next category has a variety of different layers. The first one is a feature that for some will never use it, and others will switch to Cavalry for this reason. It's Google Sheets connection. Before this, you could turn spreadsheets into animations for free, but now you can link a Google Sheet to update your Cavalry scene live. The value solver is also one feature that I'm really excited about. This feature allows one to store values from previous frames, which makes you able to, for example, make something fade out like this. The tracking tool lets you track flat surfaces on a video so that you overlay your animations onto a surface in a video. The last one in this category is the accumulator, which has similarities with the layout group in the sense that it can create custom layouts, but also stacks shapes like this. The next feature we're going to look at is in a group of its own, and is going to be really exciting for After Effects users. It's called the camera. When a camera is added to your composition, it creates a 2.5D environment. While it's not true 3D like Blender with real geometry, it creates an illusion of depth and is impressively convincing. I can imagine After Effects users might want to use this to create these 3D screen animations. Before we move on to the last category, which will completely change the way free users work in Cavalry, let's take a look at exporting. First of all, we now have access to audio export, which will allow people to have an end-to-end workflow in Cavalry, adding sound design within the software. Furthermore, the resolution is no longer capped to 1080p, so now you can render your animation in 8K. More advanced users might find it nice to hear that you can now export in Lottie animation. And if you don't know, this is a vector-based animation file format developed by Airbnb that'll allow you to export animations to use on web pages, for instance. Lastly, in this category, I've selected dynamic rendering. This is extremely handy for studios, for example, who wants to create many variations of an animation. Say you're visualizing data for different countries. With dynamic rendering, you don't have to render one country, then change animation and move on to the next. You can set the dynamic rendering to change values for each render to render all in a matter of seconds and change them easily. For the last category, we have workflow and app features. If you remember in the component feature I mentioned earlier in the video, we have a similar feature, the control center. This will allow you to promote the most important attributes like in the component. Only difference is that the component is sort of about one element in the scene, while the control center can be used more globally in the scene. Next up we have Shortcut Manager, which I don't know why free users didn't have before. But now it's here and everyone can create and customize keyboard shortcuts. The next one is sort of similar to the Spotlight feature in Mac OS because it lets you execute commands like creating shapes using the command search feature. With this update, you can now also add multiple viewports and have access to experimental features. Now, to answer the question, is Cavalry the best option for motion designers right now? I will say Cavalry was already very good before this, and now that it's all free, there's generally no reason not to try it. If you're starting from scratch, episode 1 of my beginner's guide is right here.